In Jacob deGrom's first start of the year, he looked dominant. And on today's show, I'm going to tell you why he was even better than you might think he was in his first start of the year. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about Jacob deGrom's dominant first outing. Why I'm so incredibly encouraged by Jack Leiter's first start of the year. And unfortunately, some injury news way too early in the season. Before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Now, the Rangers took 3 out of 4 in this opening series against the Boston Red Sox team. A lot of different pundits were picking to not only win the AL East, but also come out of the American League in the represent them in the World Series. This is a good team, and the Rangers did their job. They won 3 out of 4, unfortunately dropping on opening day, but 3 straight wins is a pretty darn good way to finish a series. And, throwing Jacob deGrom when you got a chance to win any series, whether it's a regular season series, whether that's a postseason series, it's a good way to be sure that you're probably going to win that series. Because in his first start of the year, Jacob deGrom looked magnificent. At first, I was a little worried about deGrom. Honestly, just the first couple of times through the order, or the first couple of innings, I should say, he didn't have a strikeout until the 3rd inning, and that wasn't very Jacob deGromian. Still, he was working quickly. He was being economical with his pitch count. End of the day, with 5 innings pitched, 2 hits, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, 0 runs earned or otherwise, and he looked magnificent. He also threw around 75 pitches, which was the mark that he was planning on before this game, 73 pitches to be precise. And, one of the things that concerned me a little bit about deGrom in this game is that, his fastball wasn't that effective for Jacob deGrom standards. Now, that's an incredibly high standard. He's taking the velocity down a couple of ticks from where it's been in years past. He's not going to be sitting 98.5, 99 miles an hour anymore. In this game, he averaged 96.7 miles an hour, with that four-seam fastball going up as high as 98.1 and as low as 95.4 miles per hour. But he just wasn't getting the same types of swings he normally gets off that four-seam fastball. In fact, he only had 2 swings and misses on 13 swings. And, that was, not great, not very Jacob deGromian, but it was fine enough. He only had 1 called strike, and they weren't chasing the pitch at all. And normally, Jacob deGrom's fastball is so good and so well located, which it still was. And the properties on it, the spin and all that good stuff, along with the velocity, make hitters much more likely to chase and swing through it when it's, thrown up above the zone. That's what makes it such a good swing and a miss pitch. But they only swung at it 8% of the time when it was out of the zone. They were seeing it very, very well. And although they couldn't hit it very hard, that was just a little bit concerning. I went and looked at the metrics, the induced vertical break, the vertical break, horizontal break, all those things. And there wasn't anything particularly different there. So whatever it was that was making his fastball not be as effective, making other people, the opposing hitters, see it better, it didn't really matter because he was still awesome. What Jacob deGrom said after the game about, what he was working on, he said, my front side leaves a little early. It's a little bit lower right now, trying to get it back to where it needs to be. When it's low like that, I tend to pull my glove side towards first base, and I don't like that. So I'll try and fix that. That was from Michael Beer, who tweeted that out after the game. So maybe it's just a little bit of a mechanical thing. On the broadcast, Mike Bassick was talking about how he would look at his plant leg a couple of times when there were pitches that he was frustrated with. But the good thing about Jacob deGrom is that while his fastball is the last few years has been one of the best pitches in baseball. I mean, not just the placement, not just the velocity, but everything about it has been absolutely dominant. Sometimes you don't have your fastball. And, well, when you're Jacob deGrom and you have 3 other double-plus pitches in your arsenal, it doesn't really matter if you don't have your fastball. He just said, okay, well, I guess I'll just throw the slider a little bit more and get a 50% whiff rate on that, get 4 called strikes on that, get people to chase it out of the zone 69% of the time, which is pretty darn nice, and make contact with it less than half the time that they are chasing out of the zone. Also, let me just bust out this changeup that I very rarely throw. He threw 11 of those in this one, had a 60% whiff rate on that. Curveball, he got 1 swing and a miss on that. 10 whiffs on the slider. I mean, it's just silly. It's just silly how good this guy is. I mean, he wasn't even at his best. This is a really good Red Sox lineup. A really good. And those 2 walks that he had, well, they were to the one guy who had actually been giving the Rangers problems all weekend. That was Willie Abreu, who walked 3 times in this game and also had a double off of Sean Armstrong, because Willie Abreu is just, I guess, the next great Rangers killer. Him, Shea Langoliers, formerly Chris Davis, formerly Corey Seager's brother Kyle. Maybe Willie Abreu is just the next great Rangers killer. But this was a killer outing from Jacob deGrom, going the 5 innings, being economical with that pitch count. I mean, the pitch count was very, very low through those first couple innings. I know he wasn't getting a whole lot of swings and misses. He was getting a whole lot of weak contact early on. And I think that's going to be the goal a lot more with Jacob deGrom now. Saying, hey, I don't need to strike everybody out every single time. It's helpful. And when you're in a postseason game, maybe that might be the mentality, dialing it up there with the velocity, with the stuff, giving it that extra oomph that really only Jacob deGrom can give. But being more economical with his pitch count when he is limited on the pitch count, is limited on his innings like he will be this year. I mean, this is about as good as a start as you can ask for from Jacob deGrom, given the context. This was what he's going to be early on in the season. I think later on in the season, we'll probably see him, kick up the velocity maybe a little bit more in some of these big spots. He really didn't get into much trouble at all in this one. He was cruising pretty easily in this one, and he didn't even have his fastball, an 80 grade pitch that was just for whatever reason not really working. And he said, "That's fine. I got another 80 grade pitch. I got 2 other 70 grade pitches. I'll just use those a little bit more often." I'm curious if he starts to throw the sinker a little bit more. He hasn't thrown that in several years because he hasn't really needed it. Now that he's, taking the velocity down and trying to be a little bit more of a pitchability guy like he was when he wasn't sitting 99 miles an hour, I think that could be a helpful 5th offering. He's got to, work on and get the feel for it. He hasn't thrown it in quite some time, at least not with any regularity. But I think that could be a helpful thing that might help deGrom's four-seam fastball play even better. Working on whatever that mechanical thing was that he was talking about earlier on, I think that could also help him as well. But, if this is what a mediocre Jacob deGrom starts looks like, 5 shutout innings with 6 strikeouts, I think that's pretty darn good. This is why, for years, we've been saying Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher on earth when healthy. He's healthy right now. We can just take that caveat off for now. Until he's not, we're just going to go ahead and say this is the best freaking pitcher on earth. And he was the number 4 guy in this rotation. I think it'll be about 6 days, maybe next Saturday, when we'll see the next Jacob deGrom game. I am very much looking forward to that. Also very much looking forward to the next Jack Leiter start. Vandy Boy, number 1 in the rotation, really stepped up. Will Kumar Rocker step up in a big way in a hitter-friendly ballpark in Cincinnati? We're going to talk about that and why I'm so encouraged by Jack Leiter's most recent start. And, unfortunately, another Josh Young IL trip. All that and more right after this. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks you can use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories to even who's cutting down the nets. Right now, they've got MLB World Series odds. Somehow, Even after losing 3 out of 4, the Red Sox have better odds than the Rangers. Rangers at plus 1,900, Red Sox at plus 1,800. FanDuel, what you doing there? And after that incredible outing from Jacob deGrom, somehow down to the 5th best odds to win AL Cy Young. He is at plus 1,200. Garrett Crochet, after being mediocre in 5 innings and giving up 2 runs to the Rangers, at the second favorite at plus 4, actually the favorite, tied with Tarek Skubal at plus 400. Go check out all those odds and visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Shout out to the everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be back and talking about the Rangers' first road game of the season. Kamar Rocker's first start of the season. Hopefully, should be a good one. Maybe this Rangers offense will get going in Great American Ballpark. But the Rangers pitching, the other Vandy boy, Jack Leiter. Also, shout out Jeff Biggs, host of the Locked On Rangers postcast, covering every single game, giving you that 20-minute postcast right every single game. Glad to have him as a part of the network. Y'all go check out his work, and he will be on right after games live on YouTube and in your Locked On Rangers podcast feed. Now, Jack Leiter, his first start of the season, his job on the line, making the Rangers rotation because of injuries to John Gray and to Cody Bradford. The Rangers signed Patrick Corbin as kind of that depth insurance behind him, but Jack Leiter said, no need for Patrick Corbin, no need for John Gray and Cody Bradford to rush back from injuries. I've got you. I'm here, and I am ready right now. This was a great start from Jack Leiter, and this is the kind of start that I think he will be giving the Rangers this year, at least early on. 5 innings, 1 run, only 1 walk. Love to see that. 4 strikeouts, 3 of which were Rafi Devers, which, oh my goodness, what a miserable series for Rafael Devers, the Red Sox designated hitter. No longer third baseman, at least at this point. I have to wonder if that changes at some point with how horrendous he looked with, 10 strikeouts in his first 3 games and then another 2 in his final game of the series, 12 strikeouts in 1 series. And not just the strikeouts, but a lot of swings and misses, not just 1 or 2 with 2 strikes to strike out. But, I mean, there were several different plate appearances, including one that Chris Martin gave in that save, where he had 3 swings and misses. All strikes were whiffs. It was just rough for Rafi Devers, but it was not rough for Jack Leiter. Got himself into a little bit of trouble, but early on, he looked dominant. I mean, 2 strikeouts in that first inning. The fastball was playing well. The thing that impressed me the most about Jack Leiter is not just the mental fortitude to get himself out of these tough situations. Before, it would seem like he would spiral a lot of times when he would get frustrated and let things kind of compound on themselves. It was kind of a little bit like Martin Perez was early on as a pitcher. He'd be doing great. He'd be cruising. He'd be so efficient. And then he'd get himself into a spot of bother and things would just spiral. He wouldn't be able to limit the damage. And Jack had a little bit of that last year. Not too much. But I think he would just get so frustrated with himself. And, honestly, the last couple of years, until this spring, really, it was just not a whole lot of it didn't look like Jack Leiter was having fun on the mound. And, well, that's obviously not the most important thing. It is important. But, since this spring, since he's really kind of found himself with those 2 new pitches, adding the sinker, adding the kick changeup, and adding a lot of velocity on that fastball, healthy velocity on that 4-seam fastball, averaging 98 miles an hour. And this one, he just looks like that guy that we saw at Vanderbilt, the guy who had that strut, had that, confidence, that cockiness that you need as a starting pitcher, saying, I'm that freaking dude. I'm going to strike you out. I'm going to make you look stupid while you do that. That healthy disdain of hitters that the best pitchers really have. And just the cocksure attitude that you kind of need to be a pitcher or to be a big leaguer at all. You got to be at least a little cocky. And Jack Leiter's fastball was playing at the bottom of the zone. That's something that has not worked for him at all. Normally that 4-seam fastball, if it's up, it's got the properties of a rising fastball. It doesn't dip as far down. The induced vertical break is all very, very well and good. All of the extra properties that you like to see on a 4-seam fastball besides just velocity, that usually plays well at the top of the zone. But in this game, it was playing well at the bottom of the zone too, and he was getting swings and misses on the sinker as well. 28 four-seam fastballs, 24 sinkers. He had 6 whiffs on the four-seam fastball, 4 whiffs on the sinker, 82 pitches, a very economical outing. I think we'll probably get to see him ramped up more towards that 90-pitch mark in his next start, and then after that, I'm sure that he'll be able to go around 100. And you hope that he stays kind of economical with those pitch counts. I mean, only 4 strikeouts in 5 innings. I think if you sacrifice a little bit of those strikeouts for that hard contact, especially early on this season when there's going to be limits on how many pitches Jacob deGrom's throwing, how many innings he's throwing, if Tyler Mahle is going to be as ineffective and inefficient as he was in that game. I think that was just a one bad outing, but Mahle sitting at 93 is not exactly where I'd like. He did get a lot of swings and misses on that four-seam fastball, but he also walked a whole bunch of guys, and the most frustrating part of Mahle's outing, that he only went an inning and a third, an inning and 2/3. What was it? Inning and 2/3, excuse me. 4 walks in that span, including walking in a run with the bases loaded. I mean, the Rangers need innings from their guys, and Jack going 5 and giving you 1 run, he's occasionally going to have some hard contact that he gives up. He's occasionally going to have some starts where he probably only goes 2 innings and, gets blown up just a little bit. But if he can have more outings to stack on an outing like this, his first big league win, it's got to feel good. It's got to feel good for Jack Leiter. I mean, this is a guy who has worked so hard, and there's been a lot of expectations on him. And, there's been a lot of progress in a very short amount of time. He's been working at it and working at it and working at it. And again, development is not a linear path for everybody. It's not the same for everybody. And, these 2 new pitches and just kind of a renewed confidence in himself, I think bodes incredibly well for this Rangers team. Because, who knows exactly when Gray and Bradford are going to get back? Who knows how many limits the Rangers are going to place on basically 3 out of the 4 pitchers in this rotation. Jack and Nathan Eovaldi are basically going to be the ones that are let fully go. I think at least early on. We'll see what they do with Rocker. We'll see what they do with Mahle. We know that there's going to be a lot of limits on deGrom so that he can be healthy down the stretch. But this was just a great confidence builder for Jack Leiter that you have to feel really, really great about, something that I think he can build on. Going 5 innings, 1 run against this Red Sox lineup, it's a great outing for Jack to feel good about. But one thing that I was not feeling good about this weekend is, unfortunately, Josh Young headed to the IL. He was dealing with some neck spasms. He was dealing with it the last couple of games in spring training, the simulation games in Arlington after they got done in Arizona. He played through it on opening day, and he tried to play through it on Friday on a throw to first base. He tweaked something in his neck, and he just could not keep going. So Josh Smith replaced him in that game. And despite him probably not needing the full 10 days, Bochy said that he would probably be ready, 3 or 4 days earlier than this IL trip will be done. He is eligible to return on April 7th. That's going to be against the Cubs. Bochy said that maybe this will just help it get cleared up so it's not a recurring issue, so it can just be 10 days, and so that the Rangers could get Jonathan Ornelas on this roster, because Josh Smith is also day-to-day at this point. He, in the first inning on Saturday's game, runs into the wall in left field and in foul territory, and just did not look quite right after that. It was a hip contusion. He also landed a little bit weird on his foot, and he was immediately replaced by Zeke Duran. And then on to Sunday's game, I believe the Rangers were just giving Corey Seager a little bit of a day off. He had been dealing with some calf issues early. He didn't start at shortstop on opening day. He had a couple of not great at-bats the first couple games, but overall he's Corey Seager. He will end up being just fine. So the Rangers had to start Jonathan Ornelas and Zeke Duran, and offensively those two have been kind of rough. You have to remind yourself that, this team does have a lot of depth. When Josh Smith is not starting, and he was a Silver Slugger last year, that is quality depth. And then when you have Zeke Duran as your second infielder off the bench, that is quality depth. And when you're down to your third backup infielder that's starting games, that's when you can't really ask for Jonathan Ornelas to step up there and, hit 300 and have a 900 OPS or things like that. It's just unreasonable expectation. So I would hold off on the name calling of Ornelas and Zeke Duran. I'm starting to lose a little bit of hope in Zeke Duran eventually being that first division starter caliber player. He's looked really rough, and he's looked like he's forcing it offensively, and even a couple of defensive miscues and an error on a throw that Jake Berger probably should have and could have scooped that ended up scoring a go-ahead run at one point this weekend. Just there's only so much depth you can have. I'm really hoping that for Josh Jung, this is the only IL trip this season, the only IL stint he can just take some time off and get right. I know he's more frustrated than anybody with this stint on the IL, especially since it didn't seem like he was going to need to take the full 10 days. But just getting him right, getting him back as a part of this offense, especially while the Rangers have some time off. It's going to be a 10-day IL stint with, I believe, at least one, maybe two off days in that stint. So he's not missing that many games, and hopefully can just come back and be awesome and healthy, because that is the top priority. Getting everybody healthy, getting everybody right, and getting this offense back to being right, which the offense has looked very, very right. We're going to talk about that and this bullpen stepping up after a pretty unfun Game 1 bullpen experience. All that and more right after this. Now, I have little doubt that this Rangers offense was going to be good to very good this year. But if this is the kind of Adolis Garcia we're seeing all season long, then this offense is going to be darn near unstoppable. What an opening weekend for Adolis Garcia, who has just looked so darn good early on. A couple home runs, 4 RBIs for him, a nice, cool 1467 OPS early on in the season. No strikeouts in 15 plate appearances and 2 walks. To go along with, 4 extra base hits, 2 homers, 2 doubles, 4 ribbies, on pace for 81 home runs. So to surpass that 50 home run mark that he's setting for himself. 100 RBIs, yeah, he's on pace for 162 of those bad boys, and on pace to never strike out. I don't think that trend will continue. But the thing that's so impressive with Adolis is that, he hasn't really crushed fastballs in this season yet per se, but hanging breaking balls are breaking balls that aren't even hanging. I mean, the 2 home runs that he hit, they were on breaking balls on the opposite side of the plate. I mean, balls normally, if you want to hit them with any authority, you got to hit them to the opposite field. And Adolis Garcia took a sweeper and said, no, I'm going to drive that thing 400 plus feet to left center field on the opposite corner, away from him, takes it, barrels it up, and pulls it to left field. And then he does it again on a slider in Sunday's game and just demolishes the thing 430 plus feet to left center field in the upper deck. This guy is locked in right now, just absolutely locked in. And he's tied for the team lead with Jonah Heim with those 2 home runs. Jonah Heim having a multi-homer day on Friday. A really nice game from Jonah, who got to start on Saturday's game. He's splitting time with Higashioka, whose at-bats have also looked very good. I mean, if you have 2 catchers that are vying for these plate appearances, this competition, I mean, Chris Young was spot on. He said, we need competition on this team. And Jonah Heim and Higgy making it a very, very tough decision of who's going to start on a given day, because both of them are putting together some really, really quality plate appearances. I mean, Higashioka has hit so many balls 100 plus miles an hour. Granted, a few more of them have been hit with a lower launch angle than you would like. If he starts getting that up in the air a little bit more, then those will turn into more doubles and home runs, and we will just see 2 dominant hitting catchers in this lineup. And having 2 dominant hitting catchers in the lineup, you're switching them off almost every single day. If neither one of them is having to catch 110, 120 games, if each of them is catching around 80 something, then they can still be fresh for the entire season and battling it to make each other better, battling for those plate appearances. That is a good sign for this roster if you're having that kind of competition in this spring. But another thing that I've really, really loved early on in this season is Wyatt Langford. His plate appearances have been so good, including an opposite field home run on a fastball right at the top of the zone, just barely squeaked over that wall in right field, but an Apo Taco home run, his first home run of the season. And not just the hits, the quality of the hits, the different types of hits. Had an infield hit, also had a laser beam home run. But one thing I didn't mention on opening day, which was such an incredibly impressive plate appearance against Garrett Crochet, a 9-pitch walk, maybe so far one of the best plate appearances that anybody has had this season so far on the Rangers, was that 9-pitch walk against Garrett Crochet, fouling off pitches right on the zone, taking very, very close pitches. This is the signs that you want to see from Langford, who also helped out Jack Leiter with some defense in the second inning when Jack Leiter was in a bit of a predicament, runners on first and second, and a ball that normally would be a double to left field down close to the line. But Wyatt Langford, with that elite speed, with a great read, making a leaping grab to reverse the narrative with Jack Leiter of last year, his defense doing him no favors. This year, early on, doing him at least one favor. I am just so excited for the depth of this lineup and for this team to just start stealing bases again. I mean, the Rangers already have 3 stolen bases on the season, 2 of them by Leody Taveras. I want to see this team run. I want to see this team run often and early, and I want to see them be very, very good at it. Because right now, I mean, this series against Boston was not caught stealing any times at all in this series, and they stole at least 1 base in every single game in this series. I'm hoping that trend can change a little bit. I'm not anticipating it's going to change in this game, in this series against Cincinnati, especially not tonight. Rocker has not been the best at holding runners, and Lord help him if Ellie De La Cruz gets on base, and he might steal all 3 bases. If he might turn a walk into a home run with 3 straight stolen bases with how fast and how aggressive Ellie De La Cruz is on the base pass. But I want to see this Rangers team run. They've got speed. They've got Wyatt Langford. They've got Leody Taveras. They've got Adolis Garcia looking good. Him stealing bases early on in the season, that's a great sign. If we can see some stolen bases from Marcus Semien, if we could maybe see some from Jake Berger, I mean, who knows what we'll see with that. I'm sure that Wyatt Langford will be pretty aggressive on the base paths this year, and maybe some steals from Josh Smith once that that thigh is starting to feel a little bit better. But another thing that I wanted to touch on before we close out this episode is this bullpen. Looking fantastic. The Rangers already 2-0 in 1-run games. That is a great sign that the roles are starting to look pretty defined. Luke Jackson as the closer, blowing that game, but he's still got 2 saves. 2 out of 3 ain't bad for save conversions. You like to be a little bit better, but just that first game was a little bit rough and really was just that 1 pitch, like I said, to the exact worst guy hanging a slider, Willie Abreu, the only guy that really did any damage to this Rangers pitching staff all weekend long. But Jackson gets 2 more save opportunities, converts 2 more save chances. He is going to be the Rangers closer. Granted, his ERA is at 11.5 right now, but he's converted 2 out of those 3 spots. Chris Martin has looked fantastic so far, including that incredible save opportunity that he was given because Luke Jackson is not going to pitch every single game. But Martin looked absolutely incredible in that save outing. He threw the cutter. He got 5 swings on the cutter, 5 swings and misses. Granted, 3 of those were from Rafi Devers, who I don't think can make contact with much of anything right now. But he has just looked so dominant. The rest of this pen has overall looked really darn good, especially in that Saturday game where Tyler Mahle was going. He was only able to give the Rangers an inning and 2/3, and the bullpen stepped up in a huge, huge way. They're going to be asked to pitch a lot of innings early, and so far this series, they've pitched 18 1/3 innings. They've only given up 6 earned runs, and overall, this bullpen is looking much deeper and much stronger, so that if somebody is faltering, if somebody is looking not great, they can get somebody else to step up. There are other parts that can step in a big way. I mean, Chris Martin is one of the the four Rangers relievers who has not allowed an earned run. Mark Church was a little shaky in his first outing, giving up a hit and a walk and just getting one out before being pulled because he just did not look like he was quite at his best. At that point, Hobie Milner going a couple of scoreless innings. Gerson Garabito going a couple of big scoreless innings when the Rangers needed bulk in that game on Saturday. The Rangers have used their high leverage guys a lot. I mean, Luke Jackson, Chris Martin, Sean Armstrong, Robert Garcia, all of those guys, all four of those guys have pitched in 3 of the Rangers' four first games. So we'll see what the bullpen looks like tonight. Hopefully this Rangers offense can just give Kumar Rocker a cushion. Rocker can go out there, get some quick, early, easy outs, go 5, maybe 6 innings if he's super economical. I'm thinking 5 is probably going to be around the limit. I mean, that Great American Ballpark, that is a place where you could hit some home runs, especially if you are a left-handed power hitter like a Jock Peterson, like a Corey Seager, who have not hit their first home runs of the season. Maybe that trend will change today. Maybe it'll change tomorrow. This is a very hitter-friendly ballpark, and I'd imagine we'll see this offense start to go off quite a bit. But if we keep getting these outings from the bullpen, this is a significantly better bullpen. This is a good, deep bullpen, and they're gonna need to be, especially if we see more outings from the starting rotation, like Maui's outing where he threw 60 pitches but only was able to get 5 outs. This team just needs outs in a big way. They need their starters to be economical with the limited pitch counts that they're throwing. They need relievers who can go multiple innings, an inning and a third, an inning and two thirds here and there. This is a team that will need a lot of outs, and they'll need their offense to kind of supplement that so that hopefully the Rangers won't have to keep throwing all these high leverage guys that often, because it'll work early on in the season. But once you get down the stretch and to the postseason, if your guys have thrown so many outings, if you're throwing them 65, 70 games, especially if they're on the older side, like Chris Martin, who's in his age 39 season, or Sean Armstrong, who's in his age 34 season, that can only hold up for so long. Maybe by then there'll be some other guys down the farm that are ready to step up in this bullpen. But overall, great first weekend, great first start from Jacob deGrom, great first start from Jack Leiter. Adolis Garcia is absolutely mashing. This team is in a very good way to start this season. Y'all, I am so happy baseball is finally back. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.